Looking at student data can be very overwhelming, but I'm going to show you a few basics in Google Sheets to help. So looking at this data right here, all I see is a bunch of numbers. I'm going to show you how to turn this into this sheet here, where we use conditional formatting to give us a visual with the colors, sparkline graph, and even a chart. So let's start with the conditional formatting. We're going to highlight by left-clicking and dragging to highlight these 4 columns. I doesn't have scores yet, but it's going to eventually, so we want to apply this to that column as well. And we're going to use conditional formatting. So we come up to Format and click on Conditional Formatting. Over here you can see it automatically chooses the default that says turn anything green that is not empty. So we can come from this drop-down list and we can choose one of these options here, but I'm going to show you a quick way to use the color scale option up here in the upper right-hand corner. By default, again, it chooses green from lowest score to up to white for highest. If we left click on this, we see some other options. So if I go ahead and choose this one, green to red, it did green the low scores and red the high. If I don't like that, I can click here again and choose red to green. Now when I look at this, for me, all that red is a little overwhelming. So I'm going to come here to the minimum value and I'm going to change it from red to a yellow, because just visually that helps me a little bit more. So right now it's taking our minimum value, yellow, and the max value, green. The max value right now is 26 of all these scores, but the actual score students can earn is a 30. So I want to change this number. Instead of doing max value, I want to change it to a number and make 30 my high. So you can see how that changed what my colors look like a little bit as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and click Done, close the conditional formatting, and you can see now I have a much better visual when I look at this of how my students have scored. If I come over here to the right on the April column and I type in the student's next score, you can see it automatically has that conditional formatting on it. So now let's look at a sparkline. This is a graph that you can put right within a cell that gives you a quick overview. So we're going to come here to cell J2 and we're going to type equals and the word sparkline. Notice it starts to show up, so we can click it or continue to write it. It automatically gives us our parenthesis. Then I'm just going to highlight the cells that I want to include in the sparkline, then hit the enter button. And now you can see this shows me a quick view that the students started low, then their scores dipped, and now they're on their way back up. So let's see how we can quickly apply that to all cells. I put my cursor back in this top cell. You'll see this little blue dot in the bottom right-hand corner. If I left click on that, you'll see the plus sign. Now I'm going to left click and drag all the way down. I'm going to drag it actually lower than this bottom score, just in case I continue to add more students. So I'm just going to go to row 100. I'm not going to have more than 100 students this year. Notice that it just puts NA in for any rows that do not have scores. As soon as I add a student to that and I start to add in scores, it will go ahead and create my sparkline for me. Now let's look at the option of adding a chart. So I'm going to highlight column H because that's my most recent scores, and I'm going to come to the bottom right-hand corner and click on the Explore feature. Google Sheets automatically chooses some charts and says this might be one you're interested based on what we're looking at. So I actually do like this scatter chart right here. So I'm going to left click and drag it onto my Google Sheet, then close this window. Now once it's here, I can resize it by clicking on the blue dots in the corner so I can fit it into my Google Sheet. I can also left click on it, select it, and drag it to wherever I want. If I want to make additional changes, in the upper right hand corner are these 3 dots. I click on these 3 dots and choose Edit Chart. These are just some basic features here on the front. This is where I could change the chart to another chart if I wanted to, but Customize is where you can really dive in and look at all the different options here to make different changes to your chart. As you choose different options, you'll see it change on your chart as well. For right now, I like this chart because this just gives me a visual to look to see, okay, quickly I can see I've got a few zeros down here at the bottom, few students following below the 10, and a few following up above the 20. So it's a great visual to be able to see your data. A few other basic tips I want to point out. You'll notice across row 1 is my header, but as I scroll down the page, that header goes away. So I'm going to show you how you can freeze this row. So up here in the upper left-hand corner, you see two darker gray lines, one above the 1, one to the left of the A. If I hover my mouse over them, I can left click and just drag this dark gray line down. Now when I scroll, you'll see that my header line stays where it's at. I like to highlight this header line too, so I'm going to select row 1, come up to the paint bucket, and choose a color up here. Now my header kind of stands out. As you continue to add additional data to your sheet on these columns, as you scroll across, you can see now you've lost the student names. So you can freeze columns too. So left click on that dark arrow next to the A, and I can drag this over to the location that I want it, and now when I scroll you can see student names stay there. So those are just a few tips. One last tip I want to share is if you right click on a column, you can choose to hide that column. That's another way to kind of remove data you don't want to look at, but it's still there. You just come up to these little arrows, left click, and it opens up that column again. Hopefully these basic Google Sheet tips will help you when you're looking at your student data.